们掌声欢迎经济学人集团 Economist Impact 亚太区科技与创新总编辑 Charles Ross。
主持人，你好。Thank you. Welcome. It is a real pleasure to be with you here today at the epicenter of global trade around technology, to really be at the hub. I felt that when I arrived here, and it's so exciting to come back here all the time. Like CommonWealth magazine, at The Economist, we spend a lot of time trying to track all of the change and disruption which is going on in the world. And as we all know, there is a lot of it happening daily, hourly, by the minute. Lots of change from a global trade perspective, tariffs impacting supply chains. But there's also a lot of change on the AI side, and a lot of that is really positive change as well. And that's really exciting stuff for us to follow as well. But during this period of change and disruption, it's really important that we take opportunities like this to focus on some of those clear pathways that we need to follow to ensure what we're doing with AI in particular is going to be sustainable and is going to reap all of those positive benefits that we want from it for industry and for society. And it's been a real pleasure to be able to delve into this very deeply with our partners at Delta. So a big thank you to them, and a real opportunity to present some brand new research that we have for you today. This is part of a big initiative that we have at Economist focused on Progress 2030, which is really trying to draw together collaboration and stakeholders like Delta, like other organizations around the world, to focus on how we can make sure we get the best possible outcomes from technology through into the future. So really proud and very happy to have Delta as one of the founding partners of that global initiative. So what we're focusing on here today is something which is super important as part of developing that, achieving that progress through to 2030. We all know that AI is revolutionizing business. You don't need me to tell you that. So many people have been talking about that. What we spend a little less time focusing on is at what cost is that coming to industry and society? And more importantly, what can we do about trying to minimize the impact, and I'm talking specifically from an environmental perspective, the environmental impact, the energy consumption impact of artificial intelligence. What can we do about that? How can we minimize it? How can we ensure that this future in the short to medium to long term is going to be a sustainable one that we can achieve? So to understand that, we've conducted some really new, fresh primary research, which is being published just today. So there is an opportunity to read more about this in the research reports and videos and various other content which is being published around this. So to understand this topic, we recognize this is a really big, important topic. So we needed to survey the right people and speak to the right people to make sure that we really understood how organizations, how industry was thinking about the sustainability of AI and what they are doing about it. And there's no point just getting one side of that picture from users of AI or suppliers of AI. So we spoke to both sides of that AI equation to understand what's the supply and demand side of AI are thinking about sustainability. We also recognize this is a very important senior level discussion that needs to be happening around this. So we spoke to a large proportion of C-level executives and board members to understand not just the day-to-day sort of technology implications of this, but the short, medium, and long-term strategy around AI sustainability. So I'm going to be talking about many of those data points on the following slides. We also spoke to industry leaders about this as well, from the real sort of movers and shakers within the sector, from industry participants who are really using AI in terms of DHL, to really users and suppliers of AI, from NVIDIA and telecommunications, Alibaba Cloud and Microsoft. So I'll be drawing on some of their insights during this presentation as well as some experts as well, to give that independent expert view opinion on it. So what did they tell us? And I'm going to run through a couple of the key findings here. And as I said, there is a deeper paper where you can delve more into some of this detail as well. But I'm going to give you a summary to get your appetite wet, to give you the key findings here. So one thing which is vitally important when we're looking to try and solve a problem like the sustainability of AI is to get business leader, industry buy-in that this is a big issue that needs to be top of their agenda. And what we found from our research is that it very much is on their agenda. 44% of those industry leaders that we spoke to say that AI sustainability is important today. And what's really encouraging is that momentum is going to skyrocket over the next 12 months as it rises to almost to 78%, or just about everybody is going to be prioritizing that. So this is not an issue which is being sort of kicked down the road. This is an issue which C-level executives, board members are thinking about and trying to deal with. So that's one of the really big things to solve for when we're trying to solve the sustainability issue of AI. What else is really exciting, which has come out of this research as well, is when we're trying to solve a challenge like this, often cost is a problem. We are all profit-generating organizations, at least most of us probably are working for profit-maximizing organizations. So cost is always a consideration here. What is really unusual, I would say, but also very exciting, is that cost is not coming out as one of those critical factors affecting organizations' approach to AI sustainability. So that's great. That's not going to be a barrier to us. The things that firms are focusing on when they are assessing those AI sustainability initiatives are the things that you would expect. It's about sort of getting the data to try and understand what value they can do, how they work, things like life cycle assessments and carbon footprint analysis, looking at their hardware and infrastructure to sort of assess it, to understand it, what value could be created here. So those types of things, really important things to be looking at, making these AI sustainability decisions based on the hard data about what the impact, what's happening at the moment, not being influenced by cost. So that's really encouraging as well for the future. So having looked at all of this, we see there's a lot of appetite to try and address sustainability. It's on the top of the agenda for most organizations, but what are they doing about it? What are those strategies that we're seeing are being deployed to try and address this? Well, what we are seeing, and this is very similar to Alibaba Cloud, who we interviewed for this program, and you can see the quote there on the screen. They, like many of the organizations we spoke to, are really taking this sort of holistic approach to sustainability. They're looking at a range of different things that they're sort of dealing with. They're looking at metrics to understand how the sustainable are at their moment, and then they're sort of evaluating other types of options that they might pursue to try and address sustainability. And that's a trend that we saw across all of our survey cohort that we spoke to for this program, that there is no one silver bullet at the moment which is going to fix this. There's a lot of focus on data, so conducting energy audits to assess the usage so we can understand what the problem is, so then we can try and solve for the problem. So there's lots of work being done on there. Some good work being done around establishing partnerships with energy efficiency organizations. That's important as well, because there is a recognition that many firms don't have the internal capabilities to do all of this on their own. So having those partnerships, sharing capabilities is really important to address that. What we also see is adoption of really new, innovative, great technologies as well to try and address this. Things like adopting edge computing solutions has come out as a really strong sort of solution for this is as well. And really that's about bringing the computation closer to the data source to save on lots of things such as data transmission costs and these types of things. So really important, and we're seeing a lot of and expecting a lot of growth within that sector. And what's also encouraging is that it's important for all companies, and that's the data on the main diagram there, but also really important for AI suppliers, where some 42% are saying that this is the number one thing that they are focusing on in terms of improving their sustainability. So really sort of leveraging new ways of working, new technologies to try and address this. But there are challenges to this type of innovation and this type of adoption, and that comes around largely because these things are complex. It's complex to change the way that you are doing things. And as Tata Communications says, the complexity of legacy systems makes the integration of AI solutions for sustainability really quite daunting. So it's difficult for large companies, it's difficult for small companies. We're seeing this sort of challenge around technology and process innovation. We're seeing this challenge from the very biggest companies. From Apple, for example, you probably will have all seen in the news the challenges they've had about adopting AI into their Siri application, which of course is an edge computing application. They're working hard at it, they're seeing the benefits, they're seeing the value, they're putting resources into it, but even they're having some trouble implementing it. And we're seeing some of that across the survey audience as well. But what is really encouraging is that there's clearly that desire from management to pursue this and to do the hard work to overcome some of those technological and process innovation challenges that might exist. That's the second main challenge you can see there on the chart. The top one there, I'm going to talk a little bit more about now, because this one is really important. The main challenge when addressing AI sustainability is stable electricity or resilient grids to support AI services. A really big challenge which is coming out and is consistent across the world as a big issue. Josh Parker from NVIDIA, who we interviewed for this program, points this out and calls this out as one of the most critical factors which is impacting their conversations with their clients, saying that our downstream partners cite availability of energy as by far their biggest factor when citing new data centers. So that's the biggest issue for them, and that is sort of the biggest challenge for the people that we surveyed for this program. And it is a challenge which is consistently being felt around the world. A little bit more in Europe at 48%, you can see in the chart on the side of the screen. A little bit less in North America and a little bit lower in Asia Pacific, but still very much a very big challenge for all organizations to try and address. And we know this is a problem because we do know that the energy demand of AI has grown to somewhere in the region of 2% data centers as the global energy demand is taking up, which is not the biggest industry, but it's still a significant amount. And so lots of work obviously needs to be done to try and address that. We're seeing some great work from some of the people that we spoke to. Josh, again from NVIDIA, who we spoke to, talks about the R&D and the innovation they've been putting into sort of the processing and the computation for the work that they're doing, the accelerated computing and the growth that they've been able to achieve, which has been quite astounding actually when you think of the numbers around this. So you think about AI inference for LLMs. Over the last decade, there's been a 100,000 times improvement in the energy consumption of AI inference. Over the last decade, 100,000 times improvement, which is a massive amount of improvement, which really shows us that when we focus on innovation, we focus on technology, we focus on things like edge computing, the work that NVIDIA's been doing, we can help try and solve some of these energy challenges. But it is still very much top of mind for the firms that we have surveyed. Looking at other regional differences that we found from this research, and we asked our survey respondents about what role should regulators play in supporting sustainability. And what is interesting is we do see some quite different views and opinions around the world. Take Asia Pacific, for example. The number one role that the companies we surveyed said that should be taking place in Asia Pacific is enhancing transparency and reporting on AI's environmental impact. So putting some enforcement in there. And we see some of that enforcement and regulation sort of consistent across other areas, but we also see a lot of variation. My worry, my concern around regulation really resonates with what Ricardo from KTH Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden said. My concern is that this is moving so quickly, as all new sort of technology adoption sort of curves and trends happen so fast that there is a concern that regulatory oversight, as I quote, needs to be preceded by regulatory insight. You should not regulate something that you do not know about. That is the concern from a regulator perspective. So they're potentially regulating something they don't know enough about and maybe getting unintended consequences out of that. So, well, our view is that we should be less on regulation and we should be more on the number two role that in Asia Pacific that our sort of survey respondents are saying that should be happening, and that's funding R&D of energy efficient AI technologies so that we can grow the effectiveness and the use of things like edge computing, which I mentioned earlier, keeping the focus on innovation where we're going to get the biggest improvement in energy efficiency, empowering organizations to focus on that R&D piece rather than focusing on the regulation side of it. But so positive that that's coming out as a really big thing here in Asia Pacific. We did see some gaps between the users and the suppliers of AI within it. I just want to call out one of them here. We asked AI users what they expect that their AI suppliers to have sustainability targets, and 67% said that today they should have targets. That's growing in the next 12 months to pretty much everybody. There's sort of 98% there. So AI users are pushing suppliers to have targets. The problem we see here is that from that same sort of cohort of AI suppliers, only 59% said that they're really going to be putting those plans and those targets in place. So there is a disconnect there. So suppliers do need to be listening to their users. It's great that we're getting pushed from users to sort of have targets for this. Suppliers need to be listening to that as well. So we need to find ways to bridge that sort of gap. So given all of this, we saw some pathways towards sustainable AI, which I just want to call out quickly. I only have a few minutes left. There is more about this, as I said, in the paper that we are publishing today. So, number one, prioritize those AI sustainability initiatives. We need to keep this at the top of the agenda for organizations, make it important, make it something which we're continuing to pursue so we can get those midterm, longer term benefits from AI. Need to be focusing on long-term sustainability over those short-term costs. We're already doing that. We're seeing that from the survey. That's encouraging. We need to make sure we don't deviate from that course of action. We've seen that there is no silver bullet. So we need to be looking at lots of different approaches to AI sustainability. There are a lot of tools available. Some will work for some organizations, big ones, medium ones, small ones. We need to understand what are all of those tools and how we can best deploy those for our organization. We need to develop a global strategy for AI sustainability because, as I said, we are sitting here at the center of those technology supply chains for the world. You're dealing with companies and partners and regulators around the world who have different views and perceptions on this, and we need to be cognizant of those and be able to deal with those demands from around the world. We need to, as I just mentioned on the previous slide, we need to bridge those sustainability expectation gaps between users and suppliers. Users are really pushing for sustainability. AI suppliers need to keep up, need to keep responding to that as well. We need to develop strong partnerships and collaborations to meet those capability needs, because what we see from these range of different strategies, there's lots of different skills, capabilities, resources need to be able to complete and implement those strategies. So draw on partners, make some connections at events like these to understand what are we good at, how can we share, how can we collaborate together in order to do this, and work with your global partners as well. This is a real opportunity for industry to get together. Despite disruption and turmoil going on in the world, industry to get together, to collaborate, to get some good outcomes. Just want to wrap up with a bit of optimism about this. I think the findings are quite optimistic. It does point out the scale of the challenge, but it does also say that we are very much going on the right track. Three of our people that we spoke to for the research sort of capture this optimism quite well. Josh Parker talks about that acceleration in innovation, which is going to be exciting, saying that in 3 years we'll continue seeing huge efficiency gains in AI, doing today's workloads with a fraction of the current resources. So predicting this massive energy efficiency improvements we've seen over the last decade are really going to carry on into the future. That's from a hardware perspective. That's from really interesting new models and efficient models like we've seen coming out of DeepSeek. We're hoping that trend will continue. More tailored models from an LLM perspective is going to improve this huge amount of change. You've seen the amount of change we've had in the last couple of years. The next number of years is going to see that change and development continue on. From Alibaba Cloud, they talk about we're at an early stage of the AI boom. Developing AI native technologies with sustainability in mind is critical. So an indication, big organizations like Alibaba Cloud are building sustainability in at the core of what they do. It's not an afterthought. That's critical to getting the outcomes that we need. And from Microsoft, they say, the bigger picture, in the last year, the urgency of climate change has given world leaders and experts to increase collaboration. So we need collaboration around this, with AI offering new opportunities to speed up the availability of climate solutions. So that ability, we need to generate AI sustainability, but that real recognition, we can do this well for our industry, but then AI in turn can have really great sustainability impact for the climate more generally and get us to that sort of progress 2030, achieve what we need to do in terms of good outcomes for society. Unfortunately, I'm out of time. Hope you enjoyed some of these insights, and I've painted a pretty good picture both sort of here in Asia Pacific and globally. I do encourage you to read more about this in the research reports and the content that we're publishing for this. We're only just starting the conversation about this now. It's critical we keep this front of mind. So hopefully with all of you, we can do that. We can get great outcomes and keep on doing what we're doing and doing it well. So I appreciate your time. It's been great to be here in Taiwan. I'd love to come back and have further conversations as this conversation develops in future years. But thank you very much for your time, and 谢谢。